I-24 News Morning Edition on this December 16th, I believe it is, 2015. The clock ticks down on this year, but not on the mayhem of the Middle East. We're going to turn to our region where we're sitting, and the latest from this round of violence. 2 Palestinians were killed by Israeli fire last night doing an overnight raid on the Kalandia refugee camp, which is south of Ramallah in the West Bank. It comes as a worrying new poll shows widespread Palestinian support for the recent wave of attacks against Israeli civilians and security personnel taking place in the West Bank and within Israel. Now, according to the poll conducted by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research, upwards of 2/3, at 67% of the residents of the West Bank and Gaza, say they support the use of knives in the current confrontation. A similar number say they believe that an armed uprising would better serve Palestinian interests than negotiations. 68% support the abandonment of the Oslo Accords altogether. Now, while the findings are dire for those who would see peace in the region, perhaps the person most threatened by the polls is actually the man who claims to lead the Palestinians on the path to peace, and that would be President Mahmoud Abbas. 65% of the public would like to see him out of office, and his party would apparently lose to Hamas if elections for the Palestinian Authority were held now. So, what do these numbers mean for the future of the conflict? Let's take a look. The following report by Mandy Kogosowski break it down from there.
3 months and counting into the current wave of Israeli-Palestinian violence, and little hope seems in sight. According to a new poll by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research, 67% of those asked support the current wave of stabbings against Israelis. 66% said that should the current violence escalate into an armed uprising, an intifada, it would serve the national interest of the Palestinians in ways negotiations cannot.
Most Palestinians feel that the Israelis are not interested in a peace agreement with the Palestinians, that the two-state solution is no longer viable. Almost 3/4 of the Palestinians in this December survey say that the chances for the creation of a Palestinian state alongside the state of Israel in the next 5 years are slim to non-existent.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas called on Israel to end its presence in the settlements and free Palestinian prisoners before returning to the negotiations table. He also addressed the daily despair of the Palestinians.
Young Palestinians started to feel desperation about the two-state solution. They go around and they don't see anything that could lead logically to the solution. Where is our state? We have none. Settlements are everywhere. There are checkpoints everywhere, and the wall is everywhere.
Abbas himself is not off the hook. 65% of Palestinians wish for him to resign, according to the survey, which also indicates that should presidential elections be held, he would lose to Hamas.
Palestinian public says Abbas is not supporting the current confrontations. Abbas is not serious about confronting the Israelis diplomatically. That is why Abbas is losing the support of the Palestinian public.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu attempted to reassure the public, saying that Israel will not be defeated by, quote, this new kind of terrorism. He also ordered the installation of safety barriers in bus stations across Jerusalem, following a car-ramming attack on Monday in which 14 Israelis were injured, including a 1-year-old baby.
I'm joined in studio by I-24 News, a senior Middle East analyst, Ali Wakad. Ali, good morning to you. I want us to go straight to Ramallah first, where we're joined via Skype by author of this poll, Dr. Halil Shkaki. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I want to ask you, the resonating idea from the poll itself is what? That if there were elections tomorrow, if there were democratic elections tomorrow in the Palestinian territories, that Abbas would lose. Isn't that the case?
This is by no doubt. This is one of 3 most important findings in this survey. There is significant public alienation from the Palestinian political process. The perception that Abbas lacks credibility and legitimacy is widespread, like we have never seen before. But of course, there are other things. The most important is the fact that a majority of Palestinians no longer support a two-state solution. This is a dramatic change in 20 years. This is the second time we have seen it in 3 months, a major change. And thirdly, this is for the first time, 3 months ago and now, a majority of Palestinians believe that violence works.
That they believe that violence works. And I want you to stay with us, Dr. Shkaki. Ali, you know, it's for us sitting in the studio, because we've been discussing this for the last 2 months, not that surprising. But when you're looking at that number, when we say that violence works, why? Why do you think that is coming out of the Palestinian population right now?
Simply because the Palestinians saw that since 1994, 1995, the diplomatic track did not work. Yael, most of the people forgot that the first Intifada and the second Intifada exploded when the Palestinians were at the best situation from the financial point of view. And I want to say this because there are two parallel tracks in which the Palestinian leadership is working, and the Israelis. The Israelis keep saying that if we improve the Palestinian life on the economic and financial base, maybe their motivation, the political
That's
motivation,
how one would win hearts and minds to win an
absolutely.
American, yeah.
And the Palestinians proved time after time that they're not in this state of mind. And what Dr. Shkaki said, that the idea of two-state is losing place and is losing weight. It is also because they lost trust in all the diplomatic process, but also when they are seeing around them that the idea of state is becoming so flexible and change in Syria, in Yemen, elsewhere. Plus, when there are organizations that are presenting a different agenda of what an entity should be for Muslims and for Arabs, and more,
Such as what? You're talking about ISIS?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And more youngsters are adopting this vision. They are not maybe adopting the whole ideology of the Islamic State, but they believe that in our region, the idea of state is becoming so flexible and so unclear for the moment.
They can redefine it themselves.
Absolutely. And this is why there is a whole bunch among the Palestinian leadership that is starting to believe, actually it started like 2-3 years ago, that the two-state solution should not be the exclusive solution for the Palestinian people. And I think, Yael, that the moment that Fatah leaders would be ready to give up their private personal privileges, I think, in my opinion, this will be the beginning of the end for the Palestinian Authority as we know it, and the idea of dismantling the Palestinian Authority that is seized by the only thing, this has the private interest of the Palestinian current leaders.
Yeah, but you know, I'm going to be actually pluralistic and say that asking politicians whether they're Palestinian, Israeli, American, or European to give up their private privileges is something that's never going to happen. But you know, in many, many ways, Dr. Shkaki, though, is still with us from Ramallah. Looking at that rise in Palestinians that support violence, is that across the board, or has a certain, when it comes to age, I'm looking at the ages that you pulled because I don't know the exact details, or does that show a rise in a certain section of ages for Palestinians, or across the board when it comes to the population?
Our recent findings for December indicate that all age groups, that a majority of all age groups today support the violence. This was not the case only 3 months ago. The oldest group, 50 and above, did not. This time around, every group is supporting it. The most supportive of violence are the youth, particularly those that we call the Oslo generation, those
Right.
between the ages of 18 and 22. They are the most radical of all the Palestinian public. They are the least supportive of the two-state solution. They are also the most alienated from the political process.
From the political
And what distinguishes this age group in particular from every other age group that we look at is that for the overwhelming majority of this group in this survey, 85% of them receive their news from the social media, unlike all other age groups.
And I think that, I mean, and that's fascinating and very important to know, because I think also that that's the generation of the future, that they'll be receiving their news, you know, or any kind of idea for, you know, the foreseeable future, if not forever. I want to thank you very much, Dr. Shkaki, for being with us, Ali as well, as we move along.